Guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Buddy Guru channel. So today I'm gonna do a deck profile on my so-called Shining Dragoner Jackknife deck with support from the latest booster SBT-03. So this Shining Dragoner Jackknife deck, disclaimer, it's not really a Shining Dragoner Jackknife deck. The Buddy is just for fun once again. So this deck has gotten a few upgrades, 2 upgrades I think. And now I wouldn't say it's doing superb in the meta, but now this deck can really pack a punch if it is played right. So yep, let's get right on with the deck profile. So for starters, we should introduce the base form before we introduce the Buddyfight form. We run 4 copies of Knight Argento Lens. So this is the original form before he got Buddyfight into narrow lens. So his effect, oppress, simple effect, pay a gauge. If you do, you dominate either your opponent's left or right open area. So let's say your opponent has a left open, you can pay a gauge and this card goes to opponent's left. Do take note, it still counts to size limit, even if it's on your opponent's field, because technically that circle becomes your field. So when you oppress, that area becomes your field and no other monsters can be put onto it. So you can't just call on narrow lens over and oppress Argento lens in oppress. So yeah, 4 copies because of his second effect, also a very strong effect. End of your turn, if it's on an oppressed area, charge, draw and gain 1 life. Very good for gaining advantage. So of course we run 4 copies of Argento lens just because of how good he is. So we go up a step further. Unfortunately, Argento lens does not have soul, which makes this card slightly harder to defeat. But with the help of the new queen, that isn't really that big of a problem right now. So next up, 4 copies of the Buddyfight version, Lost Knight Narrow Lens. So this card is very special because it's a Lost Vader, which means you can it has support when you be lost into a lost world. So of course, his effect, oppress, he goes to your opponent's left or right. So you can, for example, oppress your opponent's right with Argento, and this card with its soul will oppress your opponent's left. So it will still have its soul, the soul won't go to the drop because it's not considered calling it again, it's just moving it to that side. So his second effect is also very strong. End of your turn, if it's on an oppressed area, you deal 2 damage to your opponent. So it's a very powerful card for control. Since this deck is more of a control deck, I wouldn't say it's halfway. It can rush and it is also a control deck. So yeah, we run 4 copies of narrow lens because that's the max you can run, and you want to run 4 because of how valuable he is. There are only 3 types of cards right now that can oppress, so we need to max out those 3 different types of cards. So definitely we run both the lenses at 4. Next up, another 4 copy of we run 4 copies of Bishop Gallop lens. Again, he gets oppressed, but usually if we have narrow lens or Argento lens, we would not use him to oppress. So this card's effect, if you have an oppressed area on the field, all monsters get plus 3k power and defense. So he's good because, for example, your opponent wants to swing at your narrow or your Argento, they get additional defense, so it will become slightly buffier. Or if you just want to be a troll, you just have 3 out, call 3 out to the field, everything has added additional 9k defense and power, but I highly do not recommend that. So try not to do that. That's a bit I wouldn't say it's not the best scenario you would have. So of course you have to run 4 copies because it has oppress. So run 4 copies of Bishop Gallop lens. Next up, we run 3 copies of Queen Miranja Staff. So this card is very powerful. If you have a monster with oppress, he becomes a size 1, and all Drametal on your field get plus 2k power and defense for each of your press areas. Usually you have 2, so most of the time they have an additional 4k power and defense, which makes this card a 10k by 10k. That's not the only thing, it's also a step up from the original king. Despite the king being slightly weaker in some slightly stronger in some scenarios, that isn't a problem, because the reason is we run 3, I will come to it later, is because even though the king can return cards, most of the time if they return your press areas, you're dead. That's why we run a very special spell, Sharpness Field, to make sure that doesn't happen. And because of that, we have to take out king, because his second effect is redundant. So we run Naranja Staff instead, because he prevents our Drametals from being destroyed, on your press areas from being destroyed. So yeah, 3 copies, which means they have to break through Queen before they can touch your oppressed areas. Next up, for attack card, it's not actually a Drametal. It's significant other. It's a good star version of the Star Dragon World deck. It's a protagonist, one of the side protagonist deck. We run 4 copies of Guardsir Dragon Gyron. We run him so that when he's on the left, you don't need to have another Astro Dragon. So when he's on the left, all attacks are redirected to him. Because all attacks are redirected to him, he acts like a mini version of Naranja, because they will not be able to whack your oppressed cards or any other cards on the field. And we run him because we need more size 1s for the next card. So this card is a 4 copies, just for the so that you can protect your oppressed cards. We run more size 1s just to support this card. Next up, we run 1 copy of Freak Risk Beast Lord Xian. He is the reason why we only run 3 Naranja Staff. So I understand Naranja doesn't have any offensive capabilities, but if you go into Gyron, this guy, Value Town is coming your way. This guy automatically becomes a 6 critter. They cannot be nullified when he is attacking alone, with an additional 18,000, with 50,000 power, 6 crits, penetrate, and soul guard. So that is why we run 1 copy of it, only because he's an Omnilord. We run him just for the offensive capabilities. That's why I only run 3 copies of the Queen. If we run more than 3 copies, there wouldn't be enough space to fit Xian. So yep, Xian, we run him because of he boosts our deck's offensive capabilities. Next up, 1 copy of the last monster of the deck, Countdown. Doesn't really have to be expandable. His effect should be known by now. When another monster on the field will be destroyed, put this card from the field to drop zone. If you do, that monster remains. So like, for example, because all attacks are redirected to him, when they will attack, just put him to drop and he remains he gets an additional life. So yeah, we run 1 copy of Countdown, and he's also quite good because he is refetchable from the drop zone at the beginning of each player's attack phase. So yeah, 1 copy because we can only run 1. Next up, we go straight to the spells. We run 4 copies of Cho Tokyo Gambit. So Cho Tokyo Gambit is a very powerful card. His first effect, usually we don't use it. It's return all monsters from either player's field back to the hand. We only use it in very, very horrible scenarios where you're about to die. The second effect is why we run him though. You can charge a gauge and draw a card for each of your press area. Usually it's 2, so usually it's a free charge and draw 2 card. That's why we run 4 copies, max it out. It's really, really good to gain advantage. And then next, we run 4 copies of some defensive spells. Next up, most of the spells in this deck are defensive. 4 copies of Seiji Kado Defense. Choose a Drametal on your press area, and for this turn, if it will be destroyed, it remains. Which means, every time it's destroyed, it will stay on the field for the entire turn. So if they would swing your Argento Lens on your press area, it cannot be destroyed for the entire turn. Then, the second effect, put a Drametal monster from your drop zone into your hand. Let's say your Queen is in your drop zone, or your Narrow Lens is in your drop zone. You can cast this to retrieve those back. So yeah, 4 copies because it's a very good spell to protect your oppressed areas. and also the fetchback cards that you may need. Next up, a new spell from the latest set, 4 copies of Suppression Advantage. So this is what I like about it. Previously, Oppress had a hard time with Gauge because most of the cards in the deck were very Gauge heavy. I wouldn't say they are very Gauge heavy. It will be hard to call some cards out if you don't have enough Gauge. So this card makes sure that that is not a problem. Plus, it is an additional bonus if you have an Oppressed area, which is almost 99.99999% of the time you can destroy a spell or item on your opponent's field, which means you cast this when your opponent is equipping an item, and you can when he will use some effect or whatsoever, you can use this to destroy an item and also get a free 3 Gauge. So it's a very strong spell. Additional bonus to just 3 free Gauge, you get a bomb a spell or item on your opponent's field. Really good. It's only a common as well, so it's pretty impressive about how broken some of the cards are getting since Buddyfight A started. Next up, 4 copies of a negate spell, 4 copies of Queenside Castling. So it's a very simple effect. Nullify the attack and you gain 2 life for each of your press area. Usually you have 2, so most of the time you gain 4 life. And it's a free spell, so why not? You nullify the attack. Can't ask for much. It's nullifying attack and it's also giving you life. It's a very good negate spell. Next up, we run some more tech cards just to boost the... This is the only other oppressed card we run just to boost the deck. So we run 3 copies of Starjack Boost. You can only cast if you have 7 life or more, charge and draw. Simple. Next up, 2 copies of Shining Rain to get rid of your pesky spells your opponent casts. So you can pay a gauge and a life when they will cast a spell during their turn to nullify their spell. Very good card. Also, it's irritating when your opponent it's very irritating for your opponent when you spell now them, because most of the time if you spell now a card, like for Matt you spell now their Searcher, for Max Dragon you spell now their set spell, or let's say even Electro Deity, when they would want to search for the item, you spell now that card. Miracle Fighters and you spell now that card. This card will really hurt most of the decks right now in the meta. So yeah, 2 copies of Shining Rain because it's great. Next up, 3 copies of Chest Break just to fight the pesky Max Dragons. Also to fight what other decks main around set spells? I would say maybe Battle Building, but Battle Building not as much because they can still counter call. Yeah, it's really there to just shut down set spells. Astral Dragons also have the set spell that allows them to gain a life and draw a card every time you call. So yeah, this card bullies some of the very strong set spells in the game. So right now, we use it for that. We run 3 just because there are many decks that need their set spell to keep their momentum going, and also because of the second effect, which is just a very weak loud voice, which sort of helps in a way. It's a very subtle loud voice, but it still minuses a crit, and it's free and it's a generic spell, so you can't really ask for much. So 3 copies of Chest Break. 3 pretty strong. Next up, to protect against bouncing, 2 copies of Sharpness Field. This is why we don't run King Rosal Scepter, because there's no point of returning your opponent's cards if yours can't be returned as well, and theirs also cannot be returned. So we run this card. All bosses of you and your opponent's field get plus 1k power. That's not really that impressive per se, because 1k doesn't really change much right now in Ace context. But the second effect is what prevents your cards from being tampered with. That's the only loophole in Oppress right now, that your cards can be returned. But with the addition of this card, most of your cards cannot be destroyed nor returned. So yeah, 2 copies of Sharpness Field. Next up, we go on to the items, only items we run a deck, 1 copy of Grandmaster Kane. Yes, we only run 1 because I don't really find it that impressive. It's just rest this, stand and oppress, deal 1 damage, swing with that. Yeah, it's not really impressive. So you just run 1 just in case you pull it and you need to go for the push. This card may help in some scenarios, but most of the time you wouldn't even really need him. And last but not least, of course, the 2 copies of the dreaded Lost World. So of course his effect is be lost, and I will not go on because then some people may start recalling their horrible memories with this deck. Yes, I know Lost World is powerful, broken, downright should be banned. No, it should not be banned. Then this deck will become redundant. But yeah, we run 2 copies of Lost World because also Argento Lens is a Lost Vader. So yeah, we run 2 copies. Why not, right? It's a very powerful card to see in the late game. So with that, brings me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed my Star Dragon World Shining Dragonaut Jackknife deck, and make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what deck profile you might want to see next. I could do, may or may not do an Astral Dragon if I feel like it. Yeah. So yeah, with that, that's it for today's deck profile, and I'll see you guys when I see you guys. See you guys next time. Bye.